Hi tarot fans, thank you for joining me again today in my sacred space. If you hear some drumming next door, it's because I'm trying to drown out my pesky neighbor who, every time I sit down to record, starts to pressure wash his driveway. So we're going to go with the flow today and talk a little bit about some of the other divination tools that I have in my sacred space besides tarot cards. I have long been a student of runes, and I hand paint runes, which are available in my Wax and Wane Etsy shop. I'll put that link below. But I have some crystal balls here. I have some what I call yes or no stones, which is a very classic black or white stone where you can ask a question and get a really simple answer. Black meaning no and white meaning yes, if that's what you decide that you want to determine. So I'm going to actually stop and flip the camera around so that everything is not reversed and you can see a little bit better. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of these divination tools. And if you book a Zoom meeting with me and you don't feel like using tarot cards, or you want to split it up, you have a simpler question, you would like to use maybe an oracle card or an oracle deck, and you would also like to use some of these tools, I'll have these tools at my disposal as well. So hang on, I'm going to flip the camera around. So this is my favorite book on runes. It's called The Runes by Lisa Peschel. And I've been studying this book for a while. Inside this book there are not only just the explanations of each individual rune, but there's a lot of different suggestions for readings in the back. So just wanted to mention Lisa's book. And if you're not familiar with runes, I have a set here that I have hand painted myself. You may have seen these for sale in my Etsy shop. I also have a small bag of runes here as well. These are, go ahead and dump these out. They might not all be out, but you can see these runes are runes that I also handmade in my Etsy shop. So I have those available for use as well. So I'm going to put these guys back up. So a couple of sets of runes there that we can use. So with runes, we want to generally start, I like to have a cloth, just a nice neutral space, such as this, which we can lay the runes out on. And generally with runes, what we would do is you would put these in a bag, gently, just like that. And then you would draw your runes out of the bag and place them drawing side down. And then at this point you can flip your runes over and you can give your reading. So that's one option. And a little bit about runes. If you don't know, runes are the letters in a set of related alphabets known as runic alphabets. And these particular runes are the Scandinavian style runes known as Futhark. And people they're Germanic peoples in particular,
have been using runes from the 1st or 2nd century AD. And it's a tradition of both writing and divination. In fact, some of these symbols, like this one, might be familiar. If you can see this guy, might be familiar to you as your Bluetooth symbol, combined with maybe Gibo, another one of the runes, the one that's an X. So you're familiar with seeing runes also from, I'm sure if you're a Tolkien fan, from The Hobbit. Anglo-Saxon runes are used on a map, usually to emphasize its connection with dwarves. And in Norse mythology, the runic alphabet is always been attested to a divine origin. So if you're interested in runes, we can do some rune readings, and that's one of the tools that I have at my disposal if you decide you would rather not do tarot. Another thing you might be extremely familiar with seeing in a sacred space would be crystal balls. Scrying, or crystal ball divination, has been used since the 1st century CE by what you would call soothsayers. By the 5th century CE, scrying was really widespread within the Roman Empire, although it's always been very condemned by the medieval church as heresy. Ironically, though, John Dee, which was the British mathematician and astronomer, you may know him as the consultant to Queen Elizabeth I, he devoted a lot of his life to alchemy and into crystal reading and scrying and divination. And I think that crystal gazing probably got to be the most popular during the Victorian era. It's said that immediately before the vision that the crystal ball would cloud up and you would get your vision. I have done some scrying, and I do have some work, although it can vary, and it can definitely differ from day to day. But I have this wonderful crystal ball, small crystal ball, which I've used a lot for divination, and this larger crystal ball that I've had this for around 20 years, and both of these I've used a bunch, and they're an awful lot of fun. Usually you have to have a very, very simple question, and sometimes, once again, you get a very, very simple answer. And the last tool that I have here would go back to something as ancient as rolling the bones, back in the dawn of time. It's just a basic, I keep them on this magnifying glass because it really looks cool. But this is just 2 stones, usually of the same size. I've found these stones on various walks and things like that, where you hold them in your hand, or again, you can put them in a bag so that you don't see them, and you ask a very simple question, a yes/no question, and it's generally best actually to put them in a bag so that you can't really tell which one you would have at the time, and pull it out, and you can see here the answer to your question would be no. And if you should have pulled the other very beautiful opal that I use, your answer would be yes. So now I'm going to flip the camera back around so I can talk at you before we go for today. So I hope that this was interesting for you, and you can see that booking a Zoom session with me, if you are so interested. I have multiple tarot decks to work with, but there are so many other really cool divination tools if you want to kind of stick your toe in. If you find yourself drawn more to runes, more to scrying or crystal ball divination, or more to a simple yes/no answer, especially if you wanted to book a shorter session, like a half-hour session.
So these are just a few things that I have available for you. And I'm going to put all the information below again about how to book an appointment and my rates and all of that good stuff. So thanks for joining me in my sacred space again today. And my next video, I'm going to start walking through specific decks and show you a little bit more about each of my tarot decks. So hopefully that'll pique your interest and you'll get a great look at my collection. See you next time.